Hello everyone, this is Peter and I am your instructor for Agile Project Management course module 3. And in this module, we are going to cover the topic that is estimating the size of the uh, software product. And what are the various technique? There are various technique by which we can estimate the size of a product. But what we are going to cover is two important things. One is the planning poker, and another one is the story point. Apart from that, there are multiple techniques that can be used to estimate the size of the product, but that we are going to cover in the subsequent lesson, because it is the story point are the most prevailing measurement unit that is being used in the industry. And by the end of this session, we are going to learn the what is the story point, how we can estimate using the story point, what is the what are the how we estimate the size of the product, what is the need of estimating the size of the product, what is the benefit of using the story point. And by the end of this session, you would be in a position to understand and implement the concept of story point within your team as a scrum master, as a product owner, maybe as a agile project manager. So let's start and go with the estimation of the size. And if we understand the estimation of the size using the story point, the important factor that comes is that agile team separate estimate of the size from estimate of the duration. And to understand this distinction, suppose I am tasked with moving a large pile of dirt from one corner of my yard to the another. So I could look at the pile of dirt, assess my tool, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow, and directly estimate the job at 5 hours. So in arriving at this estimate, I bypass my estimate of the size and went directly to an estimation of the duration. So suppose instead of that, I took the pile and estimate its size, and based on its dimension, I I estimate the pile to contain about 300 cubic feet of dirt. And this is my estimate of the size of the product. What an estimate of size alone is not useful in this case. So we want to know how long it will take to move the dirt. So we need to convert and the estimate of the size, that is 300 cubic meter of dirt, into estimate of the duration. So if I say that I have to estimate a software, what I need to do is we need to convert the estimate that exists. Estimate, we need to divide the estimate into two things: one is the effort and the duration. So before I start the overall concept of estimating the size, let's directly come to the things to understand that how we divide the work when we are doing the estimation, right? So estimation are divided into two parts. One is effort. This is a very important concept, and another one is the duration. So when we study this story point estimation, we will go into little detail that how we can estimate the effort and how we can estimate the duration. For the time being, if I make a distinction that we still in a traditional model, we don't estimate the effort. What we estimate is the duration, which says that how long a project is going to take for its completion, right? So what we do is we divide the stories, not in the traditional but in the agile, into tasks, and what we estimate is the task, that is number of hours that is required to complete the task. So what we are actually estimating is the duration. We are not estimating the effort of the project. So we will see in the subsequent slides, and as we go proceed further, that that how we can estimate the overall effort of a project. But if we go further, um, we can say there are the steps which is required to estimating the size of the product. And so what we are going to do here is uh, what we are going to do is we want what is the desired feature, and we estimate the size of that feature. We estimate the duration of the feature, and then we define the schedule that is required to to be in the form of iteration. So if I go with what we have learned in the previous lesson, it will simply say that's we prioritize the feature with the various prioritization techniques, and when we have the desired feature, we estimate the size that we are going to learn in this session. How to estimate the size, we have already know how to estimate the duration, that is number of hours, and then we define the schedule, that how many iteration. On the basis of this estimation of the size of the product, we are going to define the schedule of the project, that how many iteration or sprint, how many iteration or sprint are going to take to complete this complete overall project. So estimation of the size is a very important concept, and moreover, the estimation of the duration of the project is also an important concept. So please try to understand that how we does this in agile, and how we estimate the size of the. So before I move further, there are three ways to come to an estimation, right? So how we can derive an estimate? There are the three ways of deriving the estimates. So one is the expert opinion, one is the analogy, and one is the disintegration. So if I talk about the expert opinion, it says that if you want to know how long something is likely to take, you ask an expert, right? So at least that's one approach. So in an expert opinion based approach to estimate, an expert is asked how long something will take or how big it will be. So the expert relies on her intuition or the gut feel and provide an estimate. So this approach is less useful on agile project than on the traditional project, because on an agile project, estimates are assigned to user story or other user valued functionality. So developing this functionality is likely to require a variety of skills normally performed by more than one person. So this make it difficult to find suitable expert who can assess the effort across all disciplines. So on an a traditional project for which the estimate for the traditional projects for which the uh, sorry. So what happened is that on agile project, estimate are assigned to the user story or user value functionality. So developing this functionality is likely to require a variety of the skills normally performed by one or more person. So this make it difficult to find a suitable expert who can assess the effort across all the disciplines, right? And and on a traditional project for which estimate are associated with tasks that is not significant for a problem, because each task is likely to perform by one person. So a nice benefit of estimating by the expert opinion is that it usually does not take very long. So typically a developer read a user story, perhaps ask a clarifying question or two, and then provide an estimate based on her intuition. So there is a even evidence that says that this type of estimation is more accurate than other more analytical approach. So it is still being used in the agile project as well sometime, because when we as a product owner or we as a agile project manager want to understand, and the agile project manager and the product owner should understand the story point or any other estimation technique that they are using, and when they become happy, they still can gauge that how much time this product might take, though we will take the estimation from the team as well. The second estimation technique says is the analogy, and this is an alternative to expert opinion that comes in the form of estimating by the analogy. So, which is what we are we are doing when we say this story is little bigger than that story. So, when estimating by analogy, the estimator compares the story being estimated to one or more other stories. So, if the story is twice the size, it is given an estimate twice as large. So this is the evidence that we are better at estimating relative sizing than we are at estimating the absolute size. So when estimating this way, you do not compare all the story against a single baseline or the universal reference. Instead, you want to estimate each new story against an assortment of those that have already been estimated. So this is referred to as triangulation. Triangulation, and to triangulate, compare the story being estimated against a couple of other stories to decide if a story used to estimate at 5 story point, see if it seems a little bigger than the story you estimated at 3, and then a little smaller than the story that you estimated at 8. So what you're doing, you're doing a comparison between the two things. So if for one user story which we have given a 3 story point, we might give another story which is a little larger than this story, maybe 5 story point. And we can see that by 3, 5, and 8 and 21, these structure or these sequence we follow, that we do in the next session. But the other method of doing or driving an estimate is the disintegration. So what happened in disaggregation? Sorry, disaggregation is that it means to split the story or the feature into the smaller, easier to estimate pieces. So if most of the user story to be included in a project are in a range of 2 to 5 days to develop, it will be very difficult to estimate a single story that may be 100 days. So not only are large things notoriously more difficult to estimate, but in this case, there will be very um, few similarly sized stories to compare to. Asking if this story 50 times as hard as that story is a very different question than is this story about 1.5 times more than this story. So what we're going to do is we are going to split these user stories into a smaller chunk or a granular level so that we can estimate using the analogy in that position. So solution of this is, of course, right, that what I said is that to break the larger story or the feature into the multiple smaller item and estimate those. However, you need to be careful not to go far with this approach, because the easiest way to illustrate the problem is with a non-software example. Let's use this aggregation to estimate the golf score this weekend. So assume the course um, the person is playing has 18 holes each with a par of 4. So if you're unfamiliar with the golf scoring, the par score is the number of shot it should take a decent player to shot his ball into the cup at the end of the hole. So the estimate by this aggregation, we need to estimate the score of the each hole. So there is a first hole that's a pretty easy. So let's give a 3 on that. But then then the person might usually hit into the lake on the next hole. So that is a 7. So then there is a hole with a sand trap. So let's say a 5. So and so on. So however, if a person is mentally recreating an entire golf course, it is very likely the person might forget one of the hole. So of course, in this case, it is an easy check for that the person know that there must be around 18 individual estimates. But when disaggregating a story, there is no such safety check. So so that is the reason when we do a disaggregation, we have to be very careful, because we need to understand that how much at what granular level we are actually disaggregating the user story. So in nutshell, what we are saying is there are 3 ways of driving to an estimate. Either you take expert opinion, or you go for the analogy, or you might disaggregate the stories, and then you come you drive the user estimate. The step which can be used using the story point estimation. So here comes as the that what are the benefit of using the story point, right? So the first is they quickly estimate the issue because the estimation is relative to already completed product backlog item, and this is faster than estimating without any reference. The second point comes is that estimate without giving a specific time commitment. When estimation in hours, you make a precise time commitment. So estimating and story point prevent giving an exact commitment. So nobody knows exactly how many hours you are pointing to a specific issue. The third is the embrace the uncertainty that comes with the estimation, and the story point specify a unknown time range. So selecting from a specific Fibonacci like sequence of the story point allowed to capture the uncertainty. But if you estimate it in hours, you are not going to get that clarity on the estimation. Another benefit is that it's accurate enough to plan the sprint ahead, and this allow to better manage the time expectations of stakeholder of the future work. So these are the few benefit if you use the story point estimation techniques to estimate the user stories, right? So next part is the planning poker, and planning poker is the best way which we have found in the agile team to estimate, and that is by the playing the planning poker game, and it was developed by Grinning in 2002. So planning poker combines the expert opinion, analogy, and disaggregation into an enjoyable approach to estimating that result in a quick but reliable estimate. So what we generally do in a planning poker game is that participant in the planning poker include all the developer of the team, and I always remember that the developer refer to all the programmer, tester, database person, analyst, user interaction designer, and so on, whosoever is directly or indirectly related to the project. So on an agile project, this will typically generally should not exceed the number of the size of the people in a team, which is maximum 9. So 9 to 10 people should be there, because if it does, it is actually best to split into two teams, because otherwise there are too many people and it becomes difficult to come to a common consensus. So what we do at the start of the planning purpose, each estimated is given a deck of the card that we will see what how the deck of the card look like. But before that, let's try to understand the Fibonacci series, so that when we use uh, this technique, we should understand what series we use when we are using Fibonacci series. So you might have read many times that the Fibonacci series is like 1 1 and then then maybe 2 3 5 8 13 and 21, which means you are adding these two numbers when you are moving ahead, right? But the question is why Fibonacci series, and this Fibonacci series is generally derived. If you want to see the little history of the Fibonacci series, the Fibonacci sequence is often visualized in a graph, such as one of the header of this, such as like sorry, such as in this way. And in this way, if you see, each square is so if you say here, each square, say suppose 5 by 5, then each square is illustrate the area to the next number in the sequence. So the Fibonacci spiral is then drawn inside the square by connecting the corner of the box. So if you see, this starts with this box, then this box, then this box, then this and this and that. So what is happening here is that this number is increasing with with joining the each box. So that starts from 5 into 5, 8 into 8, 13 into 13 and 21 into 21. But the square fit together perfectly because the ratio between the number in the Fibonacci sequence is very close to the golden ratio, which is approximately 1.61. So the larger the number in the Fibonacci sequence, the closer the ratio is to the golden ratio. So that is not important as such, but I just wanted to make you understand that this Fibonacci series was even designed in 1202 and by a person known as Leonardo Paisano Boglo. These are the person who have actually the Fibonacci is a nickname. So the sequence name was kept as the Fibonacci sequence. So the important point is that the sequence says that it should start from 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and so on. So so and there is a story, there is a question that has been posed. After that we have we have introduced this Fibonacci series into in the various mathematics studies. So the story is that if a pair of rabbit is placed in an enclosed area, how many rabbit will be born there if we assume that every month a pair of rabbit produce another pair, and that rabbit begin to bear young 2 months after their birth. So what is happening is that if a pair of rabbit produce another pair of rabbit in 1 month, but if the new pair born, it takes 2 months for this pair to build another rabbit. So if you calculate this puzzle, I'm not going to work here on this puzzle, but if you calculate, the number will come 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21, and that is how this Fibonacci series comes into picture. But the question is that how the Fibonacci sequence is used in the agile development, and uh, and that is important question, because the Fibonacci sequence is very useful tool for estimating the time to the complete task. So the big part of managing the agile team is estimating the time task will take to complete, and the point system that we use to give a high level estimate of the scale. Sorry. So a high level estimate of the scale or the size of the specific task. So bigger, more complex tasks give more point, the smaller tasks get fewer point. So manager can then review and prioritize tasks based on the assigned scale. So if we use the Fibonacci series, it will come 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. But the important factor here is that the number which we use, 1, 2, 3, sorry. So the number we use is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. So the point idea behind estimating in the Fibonacci series is that if you say 3 and if you say a work is worth 5 story point, there is significant amount of gap that is established between these two numbers. Same with the 5 and 8, same with the 8 and 13, and then 13 and 21. So either it is 13 or 21, or maybe maybe 8. So there is a good amount of gap that has been kept between these numbers when we estimate the story. But if we say the story is 4 or 5, there is a debate. 5, 6, 7, there is a debate, but there is no debate. Either it will come either on the 8 or on the 13. Either it will come on the 3 or it will come on the 5. It either come on the 5 or it will come on the 8. So that gap give us a complete visibility that how much amount of work actually need to be estimated. So that is the reason we use the Fibonacci series in our project or in our estimating the size of the project. So if you go further and we try to understand that when the question is when to play the planning poker. So team will need to play the planning poker at two different times. First, there will usually be an effort to estimate a large number of items before the project officially begin or driving to the first iteration, or to estimate an initial set of user story may take team 2 or 3 meeting from 1 to 3 hours. So naturally this will depend on how many items there are to estimate. So the size of the team and the product owner ability to to clarify the requirement. So that is the first factor, that how big the team is and how big the stories we are going to estimate. So the second is the team will need to put forth some ongoing effort to estimate any new stories that are identified during an iteration. So one way to do is to plan to hold a very short estimating meeting near the end of each iteration. Normally, this is quite sufficient for estimating any work that come in during the iteration, and it allows new work to be considered in the prioritization of the coming iteration. Alternately, the Kent Beck suggests hanging an envelope on the wall with all the news stories placed in the envelope. And this individual have a few spare minutes that will grab the story or two or from the envelope and estimate them. So the team will establish a rule for themselves, typically either that all the story used to be estimated by the end of the day or by the end of the iteration. So this is a good idea where you kept an envelope on the wall, and then team member just come and try to estimate the stories every time they come for a meeting within the any of these prescribed event or any of the prescribed ceremony in the Scrum. The next question is why planning poker work? Because so the first reason that planning poker works is it bring together multiple expert opinion to do the estimation, and because these experts form a cross-functional team for all discipline on the software project, they are better suited to the estimation task than anyone else. And after completing a thorough review of the literature of the software estimation, there's a guy known as Jorgensen concluded that the people most competent in solving the task should estimate it. Second, in lively dialogue ensures during planning, poker and estimator are called upon by their to justify their estimate, and this had been found to improve the accuracy of the estimate, especially on the item with a large amount of uncertainty. So being asked to justify estimate has also been shown to result in estimate that better compensate the missing information. This is important on agile project because the user story being estimated are often intentionally vague. And the third reason is that studies have shown that averaging individual estimate leads to a better result. So do a group discussion on the estimate. Group discussion is based on the planning poker, and those discussion lead to the average of sorts of individual estimate. And obviously when you do the planning poker, it is really a fun to do this activity. So if we go and try to understand how we do the planning poker, let's try to understand. We now understood at what time we need to play it. We have understood what are the benefit of doing it. We have seen that how this Fibonacci series is being used in the planning poker uh, game. So let's try to see that how we do this planning poker game. So let's consider that the team is sitting in a room, and all the team members are there to estimate the story. There is a scrum master who is act as a facilitator for this meeting, and this guy, say suppose, is the product owner who is describing the story to the team. So when this team sits here, these teams have all the developer, testers, individual architectures, and the database person who are required to do the estimation. So now when this product owner describe the story to the user, there are story cards. These story cards are like in the Fibonacci series 0, 1, 1, or you can say 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. There is another card which is question mark, and there is 0. Question mark means that team don't understand the story. So it might be a possibility team don't understand, or it might be a possibility that some of them don't understand. Zero means they feel that there is no effort required to do this story. They can do it without giving any effort. It might be a very small change. So when this product owner describe the story, uh, all these person who have to estimate the user story should clarify their point, that why what need to be done within the story. So once that is done, this facilitator asks everyone to show their card, because this deck of card is with each and every person who is sitting in the room. So when I ask, say suppose as a product owner, I describe the story that uh, the user ID, and this is a button. So this is user ID and this is password. When user click on this button, this will go to the database. It will verify the story that whether the user is is the existing user or the new user. If it is the existing user, we will give go to the you know um, landing page, and if the user not existing, we will give him a sign up page. So now this sign up page is already need to let's first describe the story. Now say suppose all these person who involve front end and back end want to this estimate this story. So say suppose this guy come up with a story point. Say suppose he says that this story is going to be 13 story point, right? And one individual here says that this is going to be 8 story point. This individual says that it is going to be 5 story point. This is agree 13, this agree 13, say suppose, and this agree 13. So now there is the conflict of the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 people are saying 13 story point. One is saying 8 and another is saying 5. So the first question you can ask either from this guy or this guy, as a facilitator, the scrum master, why he think that it is going to take 5 story point, why the other people think that it is going to be much of 13 story point worth of work. So I will explain the story point as a concept, but consider it as a number. And number, as the number is moving toward the higher one, it means the more effort is required to do the work. So now what has happened here is that that say suppose this person says that this is an easy job as per the skill he is having, and there is a simple button, simple text box, and there is simple text box, and there is a simple button uh, which goes directly to the database. If it is existing, it will be the landing page, and if it is not existing, then we go to the sign up page. So this person says, for example, assume that the landing page is already there, might be existing, and this sign up page is already existing, and that is the reason, and there is a validation that are not required, because there's a simple checkbox. But when he clarified it's he comes to know with this person that these validation does not exist, and that is the reason he have given 3 more points for the validation. But he also assumed that this landing page already exists, and this sign up page also exists. But product owner clarify that these 2 pages need to be built again, which means that now the work is increased for the team. So that is the reason they all will come to a common consensus that yes, this landing page need to be built, this sign up page need to be built, and there should be some validation that are required on these text box, even on the you can say the button that is required. So now what happened here is that this round will go on and on till the time all the team get to a consensus where they say that the story is worth either 13 story point, or it is worth 8 story point, or it worth 5 story point. So when in this way we include all the team member into the discussion that how the thing will work. In this way they come to a common consensus. So at that time this is how they are going to um, estimate the effort, right? So what we did in the last discussion, that we said that there are two type of things we estimate. One is the effort and one is the duration. So if you see in this estimation of the planning poker, we have not estimated the duration in the hour. We have estimated the effort in terms of story point. So you will get the more clarity. Don't worry. When you progress further in these subsequent slides, you will get more clarity about the story point. But just as of now, just assume that these are the numbers that we have given at a part of the effort. But ultimately, what is happening here is we are dividing the duration and the effort into two parts. So some amount of preliminary design discussion is necessary and appropriate when estimating. However, spending too much time on the design discussion send the team too far up to the accuracy effort curve. That might change over the period of time, right? So the accuracy we might not get it, but we should have a level of estimation that come when 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 we actually estimate the stories on the basis of effort that is required, but not on the basis of duration that is required, right? So so uh, so this is by no that is you have to be very peculiar when you are doing this exercise of planning poker. The facilitator, that is the scrum master, have to be very wise enough to understand the time boxing of the discussion that happen uh, when the product owner describe the story, when team is discussing the story. So so the smaller session are very effective, because the longer the session goes, the longer team discuss on the thing that probably not required, but sometimes they become so skeptical that they kept on discussing the thing to make accurate estimate, but these are estimate, they cannot be accurate. So it is possible to play planning poker with a subset of the team rather than involving everyone. And this isn't ideal, but maybe a reasonable option. So especially if there are many items to be estimated, as can happen at the start of a new project, the best way to do is to split the larger team into the smaller team, and each of which must have at least 3 estimators. So it is important that each of the team member estimate consistently. So when your teams calls 3 story point or the idle days, better to be consistent with what your team call is the same for both the team, that they are worth 3 story point of work. So that we have learned that we have to estimate when we are supposed to do the planning meeting. There's a through three times where 3 ways, or the 3 places where we can do the planning poker game. First, there will be usually to be an effort to estimate the large story of item before the project officially begin or during the first iteration. Second, team will need to put forth some ongoing effort to estimate any new story that are identified during an iteration. And one way to do is to plan to hold a very short estimation meeting near the end of each iteration. And alternately, I told you that just hang a envelope on the wall where you kept the story card, and with this story card, whenever teams come to a discussion, they come and discuss these stories and estimate these stories. So this is how the planning poker was, and this is how Fibonacci series is being used in the planning poker. And the series will be 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and so on. And there are various card available. There are application available on the mobile, which help you to, if you don't want a physical card, you can use the mobile application where it describes the number, and that number can be shown to all the users, or all the person who are estimating the thing in a room, or they are estimating the project, or they are estimating the user story. So now here comes the point is the story point, which um, we are going to understand what a story point is and how this story point uh, include the various things. So the first important point is that uh, story point are relative. That is the first part. We derived the velocity using the story point. These estimates are shared, and these estimation scale that we use uh, in the um, uh, in the sprint planning meeting. So before we go there, let's try to understand what include the story point. These are the story point card. Just have a look to these cards so that whenever I say is that we are using the story point card or the Fibonacci series, it should be like this. That this is the zero story point. This is half story point, 1, 2, 3, and so on. But the important point is that you use this card, you show this card, and when these cards are being used, they are very helpful because each and every member simultaneously put this card and display this card to everyone so that there is no discussion required when we estimate the story. So let's try to understand the concept of story point. And when we say story point, it include three things: the amount of work that we are going to do, what is the complexity of the work, and what is the uncertainty. So if I put it in a three word, I can say that it include. When I put it in three word, I can say complexity. It include volume, and it include uncertainty, right? There are three things that are used in the story point. Let's try to understand it in a perfect manner so that we would be able in a position to understand story point better. Let's suppose that we are point A and we are at point B. Now the team member are, say suppose, Sam, Peter, maybe Amy, and John. Let's go with these four only to for the sake of this session. Now suppose that a person need to go from point A to point B, and these four person are going from point A to the point B. Now the first question is that what is the distance between point A and point B? So now say Sam says the distance is 30 kilometer. Peter says the distance is maybe 25 kilometer. The Amy says the distance is 10 kilometer. The John says that distance is maybe 20 kilometer, right? So now the point is that why every one of them are saying a different estimation, sorry, in different distance between these 2 points. So might be possible that Sam is saying that the distance he have taken into consideration is somewhere like this, and that is the reason this distance is coming 30 kilometer. Maybe this Amy have taken this distance directly from A to B, which is coming at 10 kilometer, right? Maybe the third person, Peter, have taken it like this, and it is saying that 25 kilometer. And same goes with the Peter. Peter says that this distance is like this, and that is the reason it is coming at 20 kilometer. So what, let's we have a discussion and we say that okay guys, the distance which we are going to follow is this distance, that is here to here, and it will be a distance from this point to this point with this path, right? So if we come to a common concession, we don't require the other path, because we have come to a conclusion that the distance that we are going to travel between the point A and the point B is this distance, which we have come to a conclusion that this distance is this one. Now say we have come to a conclusion that this distance is 10 kilometers. So if we have taken into consideration all the things that are required to come to a conclusion that how much distance there is between the point A and the point B. So do we require any discussion on this part that what is the distance between the point A and point B? No, we don't require now because we have already decided which path to choose, what are the area that we need to cover from point A to point B, and with the common consent we say mutual consent we say that this distance is 10 kilometer. So do you think this distance is going to change ever now? No, this distance is not going to change until we say that there are some blocker somewhere here and we want to take this route, right? So that is the only way with which the estimation change. But if the estimation will change, the entire team will come to a conclusion that this distance is going to be 12 kilometer now, right? So So this is one thing, right? Now comes to a second part of this game where we say that Sam is a very good athlete, and if I ask Sam that how this guy is going to travel this distance from A to B, how much time it is going to take for him to go to this level. So let's say that initially he says that it is going to take him, say suppose 150 minutes. For Peter, it is going to take 120 minutes. For Amy, it is going to take maybe 180 minutes. And John will take around 80 minutes to travel the distance. So the first point of discussion between these guys is that what is the conveyance that they are using from point A to point B. He might be using his bike, he might be using her bicycle, he might be using also his bike, and he might be using a metro. Say suppose he might be using bus. This is cycle, and this is bike. So we come to again a same conclusion or the same discussion that we are going to walk down this distance, or we are all are going to say suppose bike. Let's go to that we are going to walk down this particular distance from point A to point B. So if I ask every one of them how much time they are going to take, say suppose this guy says uh, 150, Peter says 120, Amy says that she's going to take 180, and John says that he's going to take around 80 minutes. So forgot the previous discussion because all of them are going to walk, and the walk will take this much of time. So now, if I ask John, John is a very good athlete. He run in the marathon, and that is the reason he is going to take maybe 80 minutes. I mean, never walk in the morning, never in the evening, and that is the reason she is going to take 180 minutes. Peter little better because he sometimes walks and but still have a good physique, so he might be able to do it in 120 minutes. And same goes with the Sam, because Sam and Amy are not very athletic. They are not very good physics, so that they can travel this distance in less than 120 minutes. But over of the period of time, what I expect is that if they all are working in this project of traveling a distance of 12 kilometers, I want Sam or I want Amy to to start walking walking in the evening and morning, or maybe she should go for a gym so that she should take less time than what she is taking right now. So all of them listen that how they have to improve. So there is no point of improvement required as of now for the John, but say suppose Emmy comes to 150 minutes, Peter comes to 100 minutes, and Sam comes to 120 minutes in the second week. If we go to the third week, Sam or John also did well, and he tried his level best, and but the maximum perfection he could bring into his own time is of 2 minutes maybe. But Emmy did very well, and Emmy come to 110. Same with goes with the Peter goes to comes to 90, and same goes to uh, Sam, and he comes to 100. So if we go to 1.5 months later, the Peter comes to 78. Amy comes to maybe 100. Peter's come to somewhere around 85, and Sam comes to somewhere around 95. But what is happening here is they are improving on their um, um, the walking capabilities, and maybe after 6 months, because they are doing the same thing, they almost come to same level, right? That what is expecting from them. um, this all happen when they're doing the same job, not with much of these changes, but just for the sake of understanding that how the story point work. Now let's suppose that consider this distance which we have taken here as story point. So this distance is the story point. So this 12 distance is the story point, which means this is a 12th story point of work, and this is the duration that each member is going to work upon. So to do this story point of work, sorry, so to this story point of work, Sam might take 85 minutes, Peter might take 85 minutes, Amy might take 85 minutes, and John will take 85 minutes in the longer run, but initially they might take this much of the time. So this is the actual tasking that we do in our software estimation, and this is the story point. So if you see, what we have done here is we have divided the effort and duration. So what we have estimated so far is the duration, and this time now we are going to estimate the effort. So what happened is, now hope you have understood it. Now what is going to happen here is that um, so so what is going to happen is, say suppose we have now 10 stories that need to be taken into one iteration. How we are going to work upon it? Say suppose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. So this one story, say suppose the team have described it as 5 story point. Now the second story is 2 point. This one is third. This one is 8. This one is 5. This one is 5, 5, 5, 8, and 5. So which means all the 10 stories have this story point estimation. So this is the effort that they are going to work upon. Say suppose this is the very first iteration they are working upon. So which means 5 to 7, 3, 10, 18, 23, 28, 32, 37, 44, and 49. Say approximately 50 story point of work. Which means this team can work 50 story point in one sprint. Let's go to the second sprint, right? So this is sprint number 1, say. So now if we go to the sprint number 2, this team might take 11 stories, because what they felt is that when they took 50 a story point of work, they left with at least some space in the sprint where few team members can work more. So they might take the next sprint, they might take 55 story point of work. Even after taking the 55 story point of work, if they come to know that they're still having some space to accommodate more work, they may go to the third sprint and take 60 story point of the work. This is in the third sprint. But after taking a 60 story point of work, they come to a conclusion that they were not able to complete another 2 story point in this sprint. So which means in the first they have taken 50, another one's 55, this one's 60, but they are not able to complete 2 story point here, which means it's come to be 58. So we can see here that what is the amount of work team is delivering over the period of the sprint is 50, 55, and 58, which means if we take an average, approximately team can deliver 55 story point worth of work, and this 55 story point worth of work is known as velocity of the team, right? So what is happening here is that we estimated the effort. Once we have estimated the effort, we have taken the velocity into consideration, that after certain sprint we are going to take an average of at least 3 sprint to find what is the velocity of the team. Now the important point here is that team need to put an effort to make this velocity you know, sustainable, so that uh, the product owner, the scrum master, and the development team should understand that how much work they can complete in the one sprint. And if you have the visibility of their velocity, say suppose 55 story point is the velocity of the team. Now team have the flexibility to define the iteration. So suppose they have if they have estimated the entire project worth 600 story point, which means that if they are delivering 55 story point in one sprint, they are going to deliver, 50 into, say suppose uh, 12, which means they need 12 sprint to complete the entire project. And if the duration of one sprint is 2 week, which means they are going to take 24th week to complete the work. And if I divide it by the 3, it means approximately 8 months they are going to take to complete the project. So this is how they are going to um, define the stories. This is way how they are going to estimate the size of the project, and this is how they are going to estimate the user stories. So that is, so to the point which we have discussed here is that the 3 things that are involved. One is the complexity when they estimate the stories, one is the volume, and one is the uncertainty. So let's try to understand these things, how 3 things they can include in the estimation is. So one is volume. So how volume will define the estimation. Say suppose I am saying that I am designing a um, this user ID, this is the password, and this is the button. And when I click on this button, I'm going to see that user exists in the database. If they exist, they are logging into the system. So so the simple story will not having much of effort in terms of volume, right? But if I say I need to test that if concurrent 1 lakh user entered into the system, how my system will behave. Now the story is simple, but the volume is increased, right? Because what they need to do is they need to um, test it simultaneously for 1 lakh user. Maybe they can use a system, or maybe they can use JMeter like tool, which can help them to understand that how much time it's going to take. But the volume is increased, but the story is not that complex, like, right? Second is story might be having a small volume, but it might be very complex story. So if we want to take this example, we can say that story is that uh, there is uh, there is a third party tool which will which will give us a data, and this data will be shown in the UI of client application. But the problem is that these two systems are in different language, right? Maybe this is in the old language of mainframe, and this is in the Java, or maybe in the latest technology. So might be teams is not aware that how this interface will behave, what all things that need to be required to build this interface. So this might be a complex story for them, though the work is simple. Take data from this system and show the data into this system. And the third thing is the uncertainty. So when I say uncertainty, we are not clear that how the thing will work. Say suppose most of the game have landscape mode, but now the game the user want to play in a vertical mode, so they don't have the visibility that how they are going to do it. So there is certain they know that they will be able to do in the horizontal manner and in the vertical manner, in a landscape or in a portrait, but they still are not sure that whether it will work for them easily, or they might need to put in some kind of effort into it. So these are the three things that should be involved when team is playing the planning poker, and these are the three things that should be taken into consideration when when team is estimating in the story point. So that is how it is going to make the user story point simple. As I shown, these are the card which can be used while playing the planning poker game. These are the card that can be shown by the team when they are using the story point estimation. So next is how to estimate using the story point now, right? So so we have seen what are the story point. We have seen uh, how the story point work, and now what we are going to see is that how um, how to estimate the user story point. But before that, I would like to explain that estimations are not created by a single individual in the team. That's what we have learned. So agile team do not rely on the single expert to estimate. So despite well-known evidence that estimate prepared by those who will do work are better than the estimate prepared by anyone else. So estimate are best derived collaboratively by the team, which include those who will work on it. So and there are two reasons to do that, because an agile project we tend not to know specifically who will perform a given task. And yes, we may all suspect that the team database, maybe guru will be the one of the to do the complex stored procedure tasks that are being identified. However, there is no guarantee that this will be the case. So she may be busy when the time comes and someone else need to work on it. So since anyone may work on anything, it is important that everyone have input into the estimate. And the second thing is that even though we may expect the database guru to work, other may have something to say about her estimate. Suppose, for example, um, to estimate a particular story by a guru, he says that it is going to take 5 story point, but the other team members should be in a position to understand why it is going to take 5 story point. He would be in a position to cross question the developer that why it is going to take the 5 story point. So in my opinion, generally there is some problem comes only when developer and testers are work together for the estimation. If the tester does not understand the technical glitch, they are not able to estimate the story. So what they generally does is they estimate their technical effort, not the overall story effort. So that might create sometime a bit confusion, but it is better that they should understand how to use uh, uh, how to understand the technical glitch that is required behind the technical estimates that will come. And if you go back, if you go consider all those three things while you estimate, that is very important part. Don't just estimate the story on the amount of work that need to be done. Don't estimate the story on the complexity. Don't estimate the story just on the basis of uncertainty. Please include all three things that are required to do the estimation, right? So the what are the how we are going to estimate using the story point. So first step is the identify the base story, and like we said that the story point are complex unit that include three estimates: one the risk, complexity, and the volume. To find a base story, we search for 1 million size task, one medium-sized task that understandable for everybody. So a task that does not have any ambiguity, and assign it to maybe one story point or maybe the three story point. I prefer to have three story point, because in that case, what we have a flexibility is either this task is less than the less than three story point, or this task is less than greater than the three story point. So when we identify a base story, say suppose the base story says that this is the text box and this is the button. When we click on this button, this is user ID and password. It goes to the database and find out if the user is existing user, then go to the landing page, right? So this story is three story point of worth, right? So whenever we estimate any other story, we will do this estimation on the basis of this story, that whether this story is greater than whether the other story is greater than this story, less than this story, and accordingly give the estimate of the rest of the story. So second step comes is the create a matrix for estimation, right? Um, so this is how the base story. Sorry, I have explained the rest of the things also, but the first point is identify the base story. This is the base story. Keep it at three story point or one story point, whatever you want to keep, whatever more makes sense as a team, right? So you can define the estimation scale, create a metric for estimation that we said, and you can use the planning Fibonacci series, that what we have described, and on the basis of Fibonacci series, you can say that you are going to use the Fibonacci series, that is the 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 50, 48 or 50, something like that. So you identify the base story, and now you have defined the sorry, metrics for it. Now once the metric is defined, what you're going to do is you're going to play the planning poker game, right? And we have described that how we are going to play the planning poker, that all the sim will sit together. There is a facilitator who is the scrum master. There is the product owner who is going to describe the story. The team is going to use this metric, and on the basis of this base story, they are going to estimate each and every story, right? So and at last you can plan the sprint. So you may say that the sum total of all the stories is 50, and 50 is generally your velocity for the team. So now when the velocity story point are reached, and the number of stories, say suppose every story is 5 worth of work, and there are 10 story which we have taken into the sprint. So it means the team can now take 10 stories and can have these stories 50 story point of work, and accordingly they can plan the sprint. So this is the simple process by which we can estimate using the story point. um, uh, the important factor here is you understand the base story. Second important factor is you estimate the estimation of metrics of estimation. You understand how we are playing in the planning poker game, and you understand that how much story need to be taken into consideration on the base of velocity of the team. So there are the common mistake that we do while using the story point, and we should avoid these mistake, because um, these mistake might mislead you when you are doing the estimation using the story point. So one is equating story point to just complexity, uncertainty, or the value. So it might be a possibility that some PBI can be complex, not required a lot of time, and a product backlog item requires implementation of a complex algorithm. So the team has already done this before, so they would be able to do it quickly. So the opposite can be true. A simple PBI can take a lot of time, and the team need to refactor a small piece of code affecting a lot of functionality. So as a result, a lot of functionality need to regression testing, and that will take a lot of time. So don't just base it on the basis of complexity, uncertainty, and value. Just look at the things, that whether you have done these things already in the past, or you have not done these things in the past. So the story point don't tell anything about the value of a PBI, and the story point provide a rough estimate. So it could be that this item is extremely valuable or it does not add any value at all. So story point help determine the ROI of a PBI. So you can take the effort into account to deliver that functionality together with the value. So the story point are about effort, complexity, uncertainty, and the risk are factor that include effort, but each alone is not enough to determine the effort. So the second comes is the translation story point into R. So if you go in the industry, you will find that um, most of the time the teams are equating a story point to the R. Like we have discussed in the previous session, where we are saying that there are two things that we are estimating. One is the effort and another is the duration. So effort and duration are two things, so don't equate them. uh, don't make a mistake to equate them. So don't ever say that one story point is equal to 6R. And what will happen that in that case the team will start estimating the things in the hours, and then they're going to backtrack it and say that this 6R is equal to one story point, and that might create a lot of problem in the future, because in future team might not be estimating the things into the story point, but they would be estimating the things in the hours, and that going to create a lot of problem in the future. Another is the averaging the story point. And when we say averaging the story point in a planning focus session, half of the team estimate a PBI at 3 story point and other half at 5 story point. So it is easy to resolve the discussion by just putting 4 story point as an estimate, but 4 story point does not exist in the Fibonacci series, and that is not going to be a right estimate. Don't average out, just have a discussion that if one story is 3 story point, another person is say 5 story point, so have a discussion why this story is 3 point worth of work, why this story is 5 point worth of work. So next comes is the adjusting story point estimate of issues during the sprint. So when the team starts working on an issue, the team should not adjust story point estimate. So even if it is turned out that their estimate was inaccurate, if the estimate was inaccurate, it's a part of the final sprint velocity. So it is normal that estimation are sometimes off, and you will not lose this information, and it will be part of a historical velocity of the team. So never story pointing bugs, and a bug which is unrelated to the current sprint should just be story pointed. So the bug represents work the team needs to complete. But this does not apply if the team reserved a fixed percentage of time for working on the bug and during the sprint. So bug related to an issue in the sprint should be story pointed at this part of the original estimation. Don't give extra story point when there is a bug in the system, because you have already taken into consideration the uncertainty in the system. And when we take an uncertainty of the thing, we have taken into consideration the bug that we are going to get in the trend, right? So adding story point to small tasks. So if you are getting small tasks within the sprint, don't story point them. Don't add those tasks into the effort of the sprint. In fact, have a capacity planning sheet, where in this sheet you are estimating the task on the basis of the number of hours, right? So adjusting reference PBI in each sprint. So when a team adjusts the reference PBI each sprint, then the velocity of the different sprint is no longer comparable. So the team loses information. You can no longer use the historical velocity to plan ahead, and it is better to use the range of recent PBIs as reference. And story point unfinished during issues again. So when moving an unfinished PBI to the next sprint, it is not necessary to re-estimate. So the estimate may not have been accurate, but this is not that is not any problem, because as a result of sprint planning, the team will know all the tasks that are necessary to complete the issue. the estimation of these tasks is in hours. So the next sprint, the team will know how much time is still necessary to complete the PBI. So the fact that the PBI was not completed will be the part of the velocity. That will not be a part of velocity basically. So the next point is adjusting story point estimate because a specific developer will work on it. So story pointing a PBI is related to the reference user story and done by the team. So the team members story point the PBI and reach agreement on the estimate in a planning focus session. So a PBI may be 3 story point from a senior developer, but a story point from a junior developer. So the team should reach agreement how much work is represented for the team and use this for planning. So you should not adjust the story point because the specific person will do the work. So maybe by the time they start working on the issue, the senior developer is working on a production issue. So it may then be necessary for the junior developer to pick it up. So don't assign specific story point for a specific developer. It should be a team consensus, because if that person is absent in the team for few days, maybe because of the medical emergencies, the other person will now re-estimate the story on the basis of the story point. Ideally he should or she should re-estimate the stories on the number of hours that are required to complete the work. So never adjust reference PBI. When the team composition change, this can affect the velocity and the story point estimate. So they are both dependent on the team performing the work. So imagine you story point the issue when 2 senior developers were present. So when you want to start working on these issues, they both left the company. Now 2 junior developers are on the team. So it is a good practice to establish a new reference user story the whole team has worked on. And this makes sure everybody on the same page when the story pointing, and gives the team some time to establish a new velocity. So as a team becomes more mature and better at estimate, it may be a good idea to establish a new reference PBI. The next come is confirming to the expert in the room. So when doing planning poker, there is a risk that the team conform to the obvious expert in the room. So the way to resolve this is to let the expert elaborate on the work, then have the rest of the team estimate without the expert. So building a specific expertise is unavoidable. So do not let this undercut the fact that estimation is a team effort. So, and the last one says is that not discussing incorrectly story pointing issues to in the in the retrospective. So every now and then the team story point an issue where it is clear that the estimate was completely off. So it is important to discuss these issues and try to learn so future estimates are more accurate. So in one of my team, we forgot to take into account the creation of test data when estimating. So we made it a special point to discuss for each issue if creation of test data was applicable. So when applicable, we would ask if they took creation of test data into account. This actually improved our estimation a lot. So the the concept of story point is very simple, but yet very difficult to apply. So almost every Scrum team uses them, but they are not a part of the official Scrum guide. So because of this, people have different opinion on how should you use them. And the term story point itself is already confusing, as you can use it for the types of the work than the user story. So on the top of that, points suggest a story point represent value. So it is good to know aware of the mistake that can be made when using the story point, and that help in applying them to the right way. So this is all about what all mistake that we can make while using the story point. So now if you are a scrum master, you understand how to govern or how to facilitate the planning meeting with the use of the planning poker card. You are a scrum master, you understand that how you need to prepare your level of understanding on the stories so that team can understand the complexity, volume, and the uncertainty within the stories, so that they can estimate the stories in the story point. As a agile project manager, you must have known by now that how difficult it is to have planning and how difficult it is to have estimate. So don't commit to the estimate which team give them a breathing space so that they can understand that how much work has been increased or decreased based on the visibility on the new things that comes up into the system. So this is all about the common mistake that we generally do, and this is all about the story point. So when you go back to your project, please have a discussion with the team, or if you have not used the story point estimation, or maybe you are going to use the estimation that we are going to discuss in the future, in the further further session. Uh, but use some estimation technique so that your estimation are effective, and they are playing a crucial role in the planning of the overall product that need to go to into the production environment. Hello everyone, this is Peter and I am your instructor for Agile Project Management course module 3. Today we are going to cover estimation technique in this session. And why it is important to learn the estimation technique? It is because every project have different number of individual, every project have a different way of execution. So we might need different estimation techniques to estimate the project, to give management an insight that how long that this project is going to take, or how uh, easily we can deliver this project, or how soon we can deliver this project into the customer environment. So these techniques are very important, and these techniques have pros and cons associated with them. So we are going to learn few of the techniques, maybe 7 to 9 techniques, and though we have understood one technique, that is the story point estimation, in the previous session, you might want to revisit it the session again, so you can go and visit the session again. So but I'm still going to cover a bit of story point planning poker, because it is important to learn it through the estimation technique if you're directly coming to this session. So so by the end of this session, you may have the insight that how to estimate an agile project and how to estimate the agile user stories within the project. So let's get started. So the first technique is the planning poker, and before we discuss the planning poker, it is very crucial. Like we discussed the agile estimation at different level. So this is done for the proper planning, management, and estimating the total effort that we are going to use for implementing, testing, and delivering the desired product to the customer in terms of their specific deadline. So with the lack of estimation in agile project, there may be no proper planning, and management may need, and in delivering the undesired product, and thereby leaving the customer unsatisfied. So there are 3 level of planning that exists, or that we generally do, and we have seen the what we call planning onion, but I'm going to cover a little bit of it here as well. So there are 3 level of planning that we do generally. One is project level, then it comes at release level, and then it cover at sprint level. So this is a high level planning that we does in any project in the agile. So the project level planning is the one which uses quick uh, quick functional point analysis, or maybe a story point analysis in that sense, at the initial phase of the project development. So when we do a release level, it includes assigning the story point to the user stories that can help in defining the order of user story based on the priority, and can also help in deciding which stories can be taken in the current release and which can be taken into the later release. And when we does planning at the sprint level, it is the one where the user story are broken into the task, and estimated hours are assigned to the task according to their complexity. So here what we're going to do is we also define the post person who are responsible for the task along with the status of the task. So this information can later be used to calculate the overall budget of the agile project, and the calculation of the budget is also crucial to make sure that the project does not go over the budget due to the pre and post iteration task or some other reason, right? So if we come to the agile estimation techniques, there are different techniques that we do for the estimation of the agile project. And the main principle for doing the estimation include the relative estimation and discussion to get more information of the item whose estimation need to be done, and ensuring the commitment of the whole team toward the task assigned to them. So if as an individual, if we want to understand that how big this box is, so we cannot say that this box is small or this box is large. But if I place this box here and ask you that which box is greater and which box is smaller, you are in a position to tell me that, you know, this box is smaller and this box is bigger, right? So that is what we called the relative estimation. So most of the estimation which we do in the agile are relative estimation, because we know that as a human, we are not good in the absolute estimation. We are good in relative estimation. So that is the reason we use estimation, relative estimation, when we work on the estimation techniques in agile. So if we go with the planning poker first, so so planning poker, in this estimation technique, all the people who are supposed to do the estimation sit in a round circle for the planning poker session, right? That what we see here, like there's all the people who want to do estimation in planning poker sit here. Let me give some, right? And each estimator is having a set of planning poker card for the values, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, 40, and 100. So this is the Fibonacci series that we have discussed, standing for 1, 2, it is 3, it is 5, it is 8, it is 13, it is 20, and it is 40, and then maybe 100. So this is the Fibonacci series that we use for estimation of the stories, right? So these represent these values which we are saying represent the story point. So I'm not going to explain what story point is. A few of the things we will explain, I will explain just to have a better understanding of the planning poker. But assume that these estimation are story point. So these are the story point which we can give to the stories. So at the start of the session, the product owner, the customer read out the user story describing all its feature and the requirement. So what happened here is that, say suppose Scrum Master is here and who is explaining the story to all the team members. So now when the team member listen to these stories, I mean this may be a Scrum Master sometime, or this may be a PO sometime, right? So after the story is read out, the discussion among the estimator and with the product owner or customer take place. So the estimator can ask question to clarify their doubts with the product owner. So after the discussion, all estimation are asked to select one card to estimate a user story. And when the card is given, these card are having with each and every person, and these card have written these number on them. So when the story is being asked by the product owner recite the story, and all the team member have their card deck of this user story point, and they will draw this user story card without telling anyone that what card has been taken out. Say suppose this person says that this is 5 story point, this person might have come up with 5, 3, 5, 3, and say suppose 5. So what is happening here is because nobody have told what is the point which they have taken from the deck. So now when the product owner asks, say suppose he says or she says 1, 2, 3 and show your card. So when all the person will show their card, the card will be shown like this. So now what will happen here is that there are two different estimation which we get, 5 and 3 estimation for a particular story. So now what we are going to do is we are going to have a discussion that this person or this person, why they think that why this story is going to take 3 story point and why they think that this story is going to take a 5 story point. Now they will have a discussion among themselves to satisfy their own estimation, why 3 and why 5. So it might be a possibility that this person might have not seen the complication that exists within the story, and this person might have seen it. Or is the other way around, this person might have not worked on this story earlier, this type of story earlier, so he's not having any experience or she is not having experience, but this person knows that something already happened, something already happened the way which we want to do it in this story, so that we can take the help of the previous code. So that is the reason this story point should be less than 5. So what we are going to do is we are going to have this kind of discussion for each and every story, and all the participants will involve. The 5 will explain their ways why they think that this story can be done in 5 story point, and 3 persons, this the story for the person who have given the 3 story point will have a discussion that why this story is having a 3 story point, right? So after the mutual discussion, they might come up with an idea that this story is 5 story point, and then with the consensus we will take the 5 story point. Always remember that don't take the average of these two number and says that we can have the middle number, that is a 4 for this estimation. No, never do that. Always come with a conclusion that why 5 or why 3, there is no average outing of these stories. So this good technique, when small number of item is to be estimated in a small team. Always remember, if there is a small number of team, for example 5 to 8 team members, and we want to estimate only 10 to 15 stories. So that might take 1 to 2 hours, and that what we says in the Scrum when we are doing a Scrum planning meeting. In that Scrum planning meeting, we might estimate for 2 hours for a 2 week sprint, or maybe 4 hours for 2 week sprint. So this technique is quite effective, and the best part of this technique is that we can involve everyone in the room for this estimation, be it the developer, be it the tester, be it the architect, or any other person who is directly or indirectly related to the project. So by doing this, we help the other person also, because that person also get the clarity of the story that need to be done in the project. So if we come to few of the question of the story point which I want to cover with this, because actually that will help in understanding of the planning poker. So if we ask what a story point is, so story point is a subjective unit of estimation that is used by the team to estimate the user story. So that is a unit. I'm not explaining in detail what story point is. Please go to the previous session and try to understand what the story point is. So, and if we ask what a story point represent, they represent amount of effort required to implement a user story. Some agilists argue that it is a measure of complexity, volume, and uncertainty. There are 3 things involved when we use a story point. One is the complexity, one is the volume, and one is uncertainty. So don't ignore any of these factors. Always include all the 3 factors when you are estimating using the story, using user a story point. So, and story point are used in the Fibonacci series that we all know. And if we want to include who all need to be there when we are using estimation of the story point, we want the PO, we want Scrum Master, we want the dev team, or any other person who is directly associated with the project. All of these persons will be involved there. So, uh, uh, So how we use this story point concept to plan the overall project? What we do is that, say suppose in one sprint, the team is delivering 30 story point, and that become their sustainable pace, for example. So we can say that this team is going to deliver 30 story point in a sprint, and if the estimation of the project is the 300 story point, which means that this is going to be complete in 30 uh, sorry, in 10 sprint, because it's divided by 30. Sorry. So if story point is 30, the velocity is 30, and the complete project is estimation for 300 story point. So the 10 sprint is required to complete this project. So this is how we overall estimate the duration of the project um, in this story in the story point estimation. So do story point relate the business value? Because story point are the internal measure of the effort involved in measuring a user story. So it does not in any way reflect the amount of business value a user story point provides, right? So there might be a case where one story point might provide a lot of business value versus the 4 story point in the same business, same system. So business value is the best left for the product owner and the business stakeholder to determine. So this is the story point does not reflect the business point. And if you want further information, we can ask that how do we know if the team is getting better at estimation when they're estimating in the story point? So it is a popular belief that if the team were to estimate in idle days, then it would be much easier to track if the estimation is accurate. So by checking the actual days elapsed on the story and the progress against it, this is however counterproductive as the team spend more hours to estimate few story to arrive a magic number of days before being pressurized to deliver on that magic number. So when a team is relatively sizing stories in point, a trend slowly start emerging where similarly sized stories start showing similar time to implement them. So if there is a bad estimate, then that bubbles up automatically as an exception. And one important point about the story point is that don't equivalent story point with ours, right? So these two are different estimation, and don't equate story points with the number of hours in the project. So these are the few important point about the planning poker. And if we move to the next technique is about t-shirt sizing, right? So what this technique says is, right? So the t-shirt size, just as in case of the t-shirt size, we see different sizes in the t-shirt. So one is the uh, that is extra small, then we have small, then we have medium, then we have large, then we have extra large, right? So that is the uh, sorry, that is how it is: extra large, small, medium, large, or extra large. So this is a perfect technique to give a rough estimate to the large backlog of item, and useful when quick and rough estimation need to be done. So later these size can be converted into numbers as per the requirement. So the relative size mostly medium is decided after mutual discussion and agreement of the team members or the estimator. So then the numbers are assigned to the item according to the relative size that is assigned to a medium size. So what will happen is that if we ask the team member that there is, say suppose 100 items that need to be estimated within the sprint, and say suppose within the backlog, and we want to we ask them that um, what is the hypothetical size of the stories that they think. So what they does is that they come one by one and please place the stickies against So what they did is this is how they will come, and they will place the sticky of stories against each item. So now what they did is they have defined a category for each and every item. So which says that if this item is extra large, they need to be further breakdown into multiple stories. So this story might need to be breakdown into multiple story till the time it's become extra small or small. That exercise we will not definitely going to do in this exercise, because what we are doing here is we are just trying to get an idea that how big the stories are which are already given in the backlog. So that will give a good idea of the overall backlog, that how many big stories are in the backlog, how many small stories are in the backlog, or how many medium stories are in the backlog, and similarly small and the extra small. It's very simple and very good technique to categorize the backlog in smaller, medium, large, and Excel side. But the disadvantage of this particular estimation technique is that what seems large to someone may seem to be Excel for someone. And the second thing is that all estimation assign their own size to the item. And after discussion and resolving the mismatches, the consensus is reached to get the final estimate. So, so it might take some time where there is a debate happening between the team member that whether this story belongs to a Excel or a large size, or maybe large or medium size, medium or small size, or small or extra small size. So that might require a discussion when we are estimating stories with the help of this technique of t-shirt sizing. Um, if we go further, we can have the next uh, estimation technique, that is dot voting, right? So in dot uh, what voting, we have uh, we have this is basically a ranking method to decide the order of the product backlog from the highest priority story to the lowest priority story, right? So this is done to select the most important stories which should be taken forward. So how this happen, right? So let's have a look to this voting mechanism. So to start with, post all the user stories along with their description on the wall and or the board using some kind of color stickies, or in a way that distinguish them for receiving the vote. So and then stakeholder are given 4 to 5 dots, mostly in the form of maybe stickers, pens, or marker, and can also be used to make dot. So what will happen is, say suppose what will happen here is, uh, so say suppose this is a wall, and you have placed all the stories on this wall. So these are the stickies on which some story has been written. It should look like some sticky written on it, right? So now what we'll do is we will give some dot of some color to everyone. Say suppose I am estimating this backlog, and I put my dot here, that these are the stories which I want to do first, right? So and the other person might come up with another color dot, say suppose look like similar, uh, this one, and he might place this dot on maybe these stories, right? But the dot should be limited, that the person should not add these dot to the multiple things, right? So other person may come up with another dot, and he might want to implement these stories in this what, right? And same goes with the another person, say suppose. So this, this, and this, and maybe this one. So now what we'll do is we find out the stories who where we have get the multiple dots. For example, this, and this. So the first priority of the stories would be this, because 3% are voting these at highest rank. The another will come this, and then they will come this and this, right? So uh, say might be if you're doing this voting for one sprint, then one print, or maybe for one release, then these stories maybe can go into the one release, and then the same exercise might be done for the next release. So what will happen is that in one release we get so maybe we get some insight for the first release, and then we can get the insight for the another release, right? So it may be the case that where few stakeholders are unhappy with the order decided. So in this case, the user story are divided into three groups after the discussion. Maybe the high priority, the low priority, and medium priority. So high priority user story are posted on the wall to receive the votes, and this is done until the final order is achieved with the agreement of the stakeholder. So if after the first pass it is almost certain that the stakeholder will not completely happy with the outcome of the vote, if there in case if that is the case, we can review the voting and optimize it. So we can do we can arrange the votes into the three categories that we said: high, medium, and the low priority, and discuss stories in the each group, move item to create the high priority list, and then move item to create the low priority list. So this voting can happen 2 or 3 times, or 1 or 2 pass. When these pass happen, we should have a list of the stories that can be done in the high priority, and that can be done high priority, that comes in the first pass and path. So what you can do is you can have 3 segment here that you can put on the wall, which says that high priority, maybe medium priority, and the low priority. So the higher vote will come to the higher priority segment, the lower vote will come to the lower priority version, and similarly the low, right? So this is how you can remove any disagreement that happen for a particular voting mechanism, right? So this is again a easy technique that can be used in any of the systems. So next comes is the bucket system. So it is a good technique along with what are the technique which we have discussed, and the bucket system is a way to do estimation of the large number of item with a small to medium sized group of people, and to do it quickly. So the bucket system has the following qualities which make it particularly suitable for the agile environment. Let's see that what are the uh, benefit of using the uh, bucket system. So one is that it is fast, right? So a couple hundred of item can be estimated in a little time or as an hour. It is very collaborative, right? So everyone in the group participate roughly equally. So this is a very collaborative activity, and it provide relative result, right? So not absolute estimate, point versus r. So it gives us a relative estimate, and the result are not traceable to individual, and so it's encourage the group accountability, because this is the one person result. This is the group accountability, and that what we generally try to achieve in any of the agile estimation, right? And work with the team to estimate effort, or with the stakeholder to estimate the value. So these are the few benefits that we can achieve with the help of bucketing system or bucket system estimation technique, that it is fast, it is collaborative, it is give a relative result, it give a group accountability. So uh, let's see how it works, right? So we can do a setup, we can set up a physical environment in which we ensure that all the items are estimated are written on the card, right? So what you need to do is you need to have a card, and this card have written your stories, and that there might be hundred of card, because your product that depend upon the product backlog item which you want to estimate. Now choose an item at random from the collection, read it to the group, place it in the bucket. So this is a first reference to the item, right? So what we do is that we will uh, we will create a bucket here with the number of item that against with the uh, technique system 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, 20, 30, 50, 100 and 500. What we do is we will place the first item in the bucket number 8, right? And why we are putting it in the bucket number 8? Because that is the first reference item. So choose another item as the render from the collection, read to the group, and the group discuss its relative position on the scale. So one consensus has been reached, put the item in the appropriate bucket. So wherever you want to put the another item. So suppose all the first item is put in the bucket number 8, and then what you're going to do is you're going to read the another card and relatively place this item in the list, either here, here, or here, or here, based on the consensus of the person who are working in the complete system. So um, once it is done, then choose the third item at the random, and after discussion the consensus is reached, place it in the appropriate bucket. So this is the bucket which you have created, and once this bucket is created, you can put the item of this bucket depending upon the consensus that is reached from here to here, because you are going to create the bucket from all the items so that all the item can place in one or the other bucket. So this is again if the random item have clearly skewed the scale toward one end or the other, rescale the item. That is, if the first item is actually very small and should be at the bucket 1, and the second thing is that you should divide and conquer, because allocate all the remaining item equally to all the participants. So each item plays item on the scale without discussion to the other participant. So if a person has an item that is truly do not understand, then that item can be offered to someone else. Once this is done, you can uh, once this is done, you can do a sanity check where everyone quietly reviews the item on the scale. So if a participant find an item that are believed out of the place, they are welcome to bring into the attention of the group. So the group then discuss it until consensus is reached and places the one of the bucket. So write the bucket numbers on the card so that the estimate are recorded. So there are two ways we can do it. One is that if there are multiple items and there are more items, they say suppose 400 items that need to be estimated, we can have 10 people there. So we can give 100 items to per person, and or maybe 50 items to per person, and so that this person can arrange in the form of the bucket, and then we can ask the another person to go through the bucket list and see that if they want to change any item from the bucket from one bucket to the another bucket. So what will happen is that once the one person have placed item in any of the bucket, there can be a consensus that whether this item belongs to this bucket or not. If it does not belong to this bucket, and after discussion we find that this belongs to either this bucket or this belongs to either this bucket, we can change the bucket so that all the team members are uh, on the same page while doing the discussion, because it's going to be a group activity. It is not going to be a single person activity. So, so some important point that need to be taken into consideration is that multiple item can be in the same bucket, and that is possible because we are estimating more than 200, 300 stories. So multiple item can be placed in the multiple buckets or in a single bucket. So item cannot be placed between bucket to represent a more precise estimate. So don't put items somewhere in the middle of these buckets so that you want that is somewhere in the 13 and 20. We don't want it. We want it to be in a single bucket. And if the distribution of the item is skewed to the either end of the scale, then during the sanity check step, the group should also discuss if the item can or should be spread more out more evenly along the scale. If so, then group does it collectivity. So any activity that is going to happen is going to be a group activity. Always remember that. And the facilitator should watch to make sure that no one moves item that have already been placed until the sanity check steps, right? So I'm repeating the again. So what happened in the sanity check? So everyone quietly review the item on the scale, and if a participant find an item that they believe is out of the place, they are welcome to bring it to the attention of the group. So the group then discuss it until consensus is reached and it is placed again in the bucket item, so that every item should get one or two buckets. And if the divide and conquer stage has one or two people working very slowly through the item, it is acceptable to suggest that they have shared the remaining item with the people who are already finished. So if it is not acceptable for an individual to completely abstain from the process, if someone desires to abstain, they should be counseled that this means they will not have any future say in the estimate. And also during the divide and the conquer stage, it is critical that absolute silence is maintained. So in particular, there should be no bilateral discussion of the item. This is to protect the anatomy of the individual placing item as much as possible. Okay, and don't make it an expert opinion. All the person have to be participate in this activity, because the more the person participate, the more activity would be valuable, and the more the activity would be uh, uh, interesting in that case, right? So always keep this point into consideration and do the bucketing system when there are more number of items and less number of people are available in the system. So next come is the large, uncertain, and small. It is somewhere like the voting, but this is a rough version and a simplification of the bucket system where there are only three sizes, where large, small, and uncertain. So the participant or the estimator are asked to place the item on one of the categories. First, the simple group stories are chosen and placed on the large and small category. Then the complex item are taken up. So it is a good technique when there are comparable item in the product backlog. This is a simple one. If you don't want to make estimation very complex, just have these three bucket. One is large, one is uncertain, and one is small, and then place the item on these three categories. Next come is the affinity mapping, which is a good technique when the team is small and number of backlog item are small. So in this technique, the first step is the silent relative sizing. So what happen is that before that, if you want, you can have the requisite where the product owner must have the list of the item in the product backlog which are to be sized by the team. So I suggest that the product backlog item are each put into their own index card or post-it note, or better yet perforated or the printable every index card, right? So also consider holding the exercise in a room with a large wall that you can stick the product backlog item into. And if you are using a paper printout for your product backlog item, then you may need to bring some kind of tape or other sticky substance to adhere them to the wall. So always make sure that you have all these items ready before you do um, uh, the affinity mapping, right? So the first step in the affinity mapping is the silent relative sizing. So the first step is silent relative sizing. So so what will happen is that you will place two uh, you know stickies here and here, which says this is smaller and this is large, and make sure that there is enough space between a smaller and large, right? So as what I shown here, place an X large post on the index card on the left on the far left side of the wall with a smaller written on it. So on the far right side of the wall, place another which says larger, and on the left says place the smaller, and let the team know some simple guideline which may have help in the relative sizing exercise, such as one is a team member will be asked to come up to the wall with a subset of product backlog item provided by the product owner. One. Second is a team member will be expected to size each item relative to the other item on the wall, considering the effort involved in uh, implementing, and that definitely have to be done on the basis of definition of done. So this is a silent part of the exercise. So please refrain from speaking to the another except for the basic comment like move out of way, or no, you need to sit here, you need to sit there, you need to use this pen or this sticky maybe. But what will happen is that every person will have some set of item in the form of a sticky note, and when these item are there, one person is come and say suppose he plays item here, the other person relative to this item will think that the sticky will come to this side or sticky will come to the this side. So in this manner they are going to put it in the um, um, on the left side or maybe on the right side of the sticky which have already placed um, on the wall. But when we are working with a larger number of team members, it is important to use good facilitation techniques such as phased work in a smaller group at the wall. Please find the resources on the internet, or the various facilitation technique that you should be using while doing this activity, because there might be more people who are involved in the exercise. And run the silent relative sizing until all the product backlog item are up on the wall or in a space reserved for questionable item. So this can take anywhere between 5 to 20 minutes depending on the number of the item and the number of the team member. So now suppose that you have placed these stickies in this manner. So maybe 10 member are working on it, and they are individually given some item so that they have placed it in the large side or side, or maybe you have created some questionable uh, item which you have some question that are placed here. So once it is done, you need to edit the wall, that this wall that you have created, you might need to edit this wall. So, so when the time of edit to the wall, to the relative sizing of the wall is done, you can ask team member to read the product backlog item on the wall and move them around as needed in direction, smaller or the larger. Explain to the team that we should be considerate of the other team members' estimate and therefore bring others into the conversation when appropriate before making the extreme move. So during this part of the exercise, you may see some design discussion going on through thought about the product backlog item which are missing and increase clarification needed from the product owner. So allow this to continue until the team begin to settle down and there seem to be a little change happening on the wall. This may take 20 to 60 minutes. Let them do the work. Let them they have a discussion that this whether this story which they are discussing is going to exist here, or this story is going to exist in another section. So they might need some tweaking of the stories on the wall, and they all are doing in a small group where they are discussing the stories. And when the story is discussed, they can see that the things have moved to the smaller part or things have moved to the larger part, and the things that are required here, questionable item, have also moved to the this wall. Now, once this is done, place item into relative sizing bucket. So one exercise we did is the silent relative sizing. So when the silent relative sizing is done, we are doing the second, sorry. So we are doing the second activity, that is editing the wall, in which we are asking team member to edit the wall. And the third is place item into relative sizing bucket. So right. So in this third thing, once all the product backlog item has been placed into the wall and edited by the team, our job is to get them placed in the size bucket. So depending upon the nomenclature that the teams have decided to use to place the size along the spectrum at the top of the wall, between the smaller and larger, for instance. And if you're using Fibonacci series sequence for your story point nomenclature, place the 5 further away and 3, then 2, and in the form of spectrum, and just increase spacing as size gets larger. So what you do now is you are going to use the 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 other technique which we have used um, in this session, and you might want to place all these items which you have placed at the larger or smaller part, and then you can have in between the larger and sorry. So what you can do here is you can have another segment, for example t-shirt sizing, which is extra small, small, large, and extra large. So now you can, the stickies which you have placed before this activity, you can divide these stickies into the multiple bucket. So once these bucket are decided, you can shift slowly all the stories in these segment, and now you are going to have one affinity mapping, which says that which item need to go into which space. So you can ask the team member to decide which size the product backlog item fits under, based upon the relative size location on the wall. So explain that we need to make the sizing clear. So leave space between the bucket of the item size. After that, this is completed. The wall may look something, like this, that you have all the item placed in Excel. You have all the item placed in the small, and then large, and then extra small item. And in this manner you can draw this this complete wall. And then in the next step is, you may want to product owner challenge, right? So when the team have sized the product backlog item on the wall, the product owner is probably anxious to discuss some of the sizes. So you can give the product owner and any of the support, uh, support to if you want to understand why this item has been placed in the Excel, why item has been placed in the small or maybe large or the extra large. So you can take a 15-20 minutes break at this point of time and let the product owner go through all the lists which they have the team have created. And it is important to tell the product owner and their supporter that the word challenge is not to disrespect the estimate of the team. So be careful how you approach the challenge, and make sure that you are communicating what about the team size item size was not in line with your thought of its size. So you can even play planning poker and tell, that may be noticed by the teams while they are challenging the item. So when the team get the back from the break, have them get comfortable and allow the product owner and supporter to ask about item they have marked on the wall. So the team discuss their reason for the size associated with the each item, and you can take multiple approaches in terms of challenging size based on the team input. So when team member decide that an item should be resized, put it onto the separate wall for resizing after challenge has complete, and have team member decide on the spot with the product owner that what is the new size is going to be. So although the first of these choices seem best, and I have also found the second is the sufficient in more in most of the circumstances. So this step is completely once all the challenges item has been discussed, and this may anywhere take 20 to 60 minutes to discuss all the item with the help of the product owner, that why they are kept into a certain category, and it is the responsibility of the product owner to understand this estimation, and he or she may want to remove certain estimation from the backlog, or certain stories from the backlog, or maybe after understanding, he can clarify few of the things that are not required, and the story might move from the extra large to the medium section or the smaller section. So the next is that if you are using any electronic tool, you can push this item on the electronic tool with the estimation and other things that are required. Uh, the important things which need to be taken into consideration or care when you are doing the estimation, affinity estimation or affinity mapping. This exercise is best conducted on the product backlog larger than 20 items. So it is best when you have at least 40 items, which allow for grouping to easily become apparent. And also some product backlog item is not to be understood enough to estimate at all. So place these on the space separate from the estimating wall, so that the product owner can take them away and clarify them. Also, leaving the size nomenclature off the wall until the full sizing steps, that is 1 and 2, which we have discussed. One is the silent relative sizing and editing of the wall, are completed using the relative sizing. Next, you can ask the team member to decide a common sizing nomenclature, decide either t-shirt sizing, maybe Fibonacci series, or any other estimation technique which they want before they go to the step number 3, if they have not already decided that what kind of estimation they want to use. In most of the cases, they use the Fibonacci series because they are more comfortable in using the Fibonacci series than the t-shirt sizing. And few more things you can add, or you can suggest that the spacing of the size relative to the gap between the number across the wall can help the team member to put item on the size bucket. Also be careful and work with the product owner and the supporter to understand how the challenge of the size be effective and still respect the team estimate. And Scrum Master must be ready to do a heavy facilitation with a single team. So if you are conducting the exercise with a multiple team, it is imperative that each step is set up well. So and it is very difficult when you estimate, if you plan this affinity estimation technique with the 3 or 4 team, that too in a room. You need a very good facilitation skill before you take it forward to the next level, where you are discussing it with the, or having it with the multiple team. And this exercise does not remove the need to conduct more in-depth estimation sessions such as planning poker and other things. But what happens is that you will get an idea that what at higher level that the product backlog item consists of, how many items, and how many items are placed in the larger section or the smaller section, or the medium section. And then you can have a planning poker session where you can re-estimate these techniques, these estimate, when we are doing the planning, sprint planning meeting. So if you need any detail further, I think when you do it practically, you might find some questions. So you may have a discussion once you have done it in your team or in your organization. So please try to use this technique, and it is very important and very efficient technique, where the entire product backlog can be refined into better estimation, and very quickly, where we are doing it with around 50 story that need to be estimated with 4 or 5 uh, team members. So next comes as the ordering method, and this is also a good technique when large number of items and small number of people are there. So, so what will happen is that it gives accurate relative size of the product backlog item. So a scale is prepared ranging from low to the high, and all the items are placed randomly on it, right? So each participant is asked to move one of the item on the scale at one time. The movement can be one up, one down, and pass the turn to the another team member. So this continue until all the participants are satisfied and don't want to move any of the item on the scale. And this also gives the priority order for the product backlog item. So this is a very small technique and a useful technique. So this can be used to do the estimation of the user stories or maybe the project which we are working with. So these are the few estimation, and I think these are very important again. Why? Because if you use these estimation technique, it will be helpful for you to do the overall estimation of the project. And also it gives a clarity and good refinement of the backlog and give a visibility to the product owner what all item need to be need to be keep in the product backlog and what item need to be released from the product backlog. So if you are a product owner, this session is going to be very useful, and you can have these techniques used in your estimation of the project. If you are a scrum master, please develop good facilitation skill to understand these techniques, estimation techniques, and be prepared with all the prerequisites that is required before the start of the meeting. And believe me, it depends upon team to team, because for some team we required certain stationery or maybe more facilitation skill than the other team. So over the period of time, you become habitual with the team, and you become the habitual with these estimation techniques. And even I support to change your estimation technique over the period of time, to just understand that you are not becoming habitual, and that is not becoming routine work for you. You should be kept on experimenting and kept on tapping yourself again and again, to find out that it is not becoming a monotonous activity. And if you are a development team, now you know that how to estimate a project, and go back and ask your product owner or the scrum master that how best you can estimate a project. And if you're a delivery manager, you should understand that what all method when are used to estimate the entire project, and that too by involving the all the stakeholder, including team, product owner, scrum master, and the customer, even if they want to come for the estimation exercise. So I hope now you have well versed with the estimation technique, and we are going to cover in the future how to estimate the overall budget of the agile project. Thank you.